Yeah, I think there is a growing movement of trying to use business as a force for good. So it's not just for the shareholders and the owners, but it's for the team, the communities and the environment, making sure that you're looking after those stakeholders in an exceptional way. And increasingly through time, we're sort of connecting with those kind of people. We picked up the Greenpeace account in the UK, and so we've been a strategic partner of theirs for maybe 4 or 5 years now. I've worked in the ad industry since 1992, so I've got deep experience in working in media agencies. It's about making sure that the work we're doing at our level is having impact on real business metrics. I think certainly in the earlier days of the agency, when I was probably more in charge of sales, I was probably less exacting in qualification. I had a certain fear of got to make payroll and those kind of things, and so it forced me to onboard clients that maybe weren't a good fit.
Welcome. It's good to see you, Alex. Tell us about you and the business and how it came about. And kind of the founder, you're the founder of the business, and why you did what you did and how that's kind of grown over the years.
Yeah, sure. So thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. So I'm Alex. I'm the founder and managing director at Climbing Trees. We're a performance ads and SEO agency, and I think I founded it in 2010. I've worked in the ad industry since 1992, so I've got deep experience in working in media agencies, planning and buying press, radio and TV campaigns. I've worked on large brands like Lloyd's, Waitrose, London Zoo, Amnesty International. And in about 2001, I came out of London to work for a startup that we both know. And I worked there for 9 years, set up and founded their online marketing division. And after that time, I thought, I'm going to go and do this for myself. And so the big dream when I started, I had a blank sheet of paper. I wanted 5 days work for myself. And I hadn't really thought beyond that. I never wanted to employ a team, have an office and staff and overheads. But I think through time, we've then slowly been able to move the dial. I think in the background, I met my partner. We had twin boys. And I think, I don't know much about being in business, but having twins doesn't help you accelerate business forward. And so they accelerate a lot of fun and mayhem. But so we sort of got through sort of that period. And so I think we've grown a little bit over the last few years. So we've got a really great team, a whole portfolio of retained clients that we do amazing work for. And I think the thing that we're probably most famous for is trying to be an agency where we actually show that business can be a force for good. So we're not just about turning a profit. We are about making sure that we look after our people in an exceptional way. We don't do anything to the detriment of our local community or environment. And that's a real genuine passion of mine, and has put some real wind in our sails over the last few years.
Yeah, so I love that. So you've, I think I relate to that from our own business greatly, and I think even the name Climbing Trees. So come on, where did that come from? How did that happen?
So unfortunately, there's no deep esoteric meaning behind it. I was walking with a girlfriend, and she said, "You should start up your own business." And I said, I wouldn't know what to call it. I ended up calling it something daft like Climbing Trees or Kicking Dandelions. So there's a parallel universe where I have a business called Kicking Dandelions. But when it came to it, it was just Climbing Trees was the name. And it's just sort of stuck with us. And I quite like it. It's not, it's quite abstract. And so I think we can sort of flex to the vagaries of the market as things go by.
Yeah, and yet it's abstract and yet right on the money, isn't it? Because I hear Climbing Trees and I see that that's your intent.
Mm-hmm. I think so.
Not just for your own business, but what you're looking to deliver for your clients. That's what I immediately took from that title. From that name.
Interesting. Yeah. So it's been with us, and I think we've had various sort of iterations of the brand, and I think we've sharpened that up and are going through a process at the moment of thinking about who we are and who we're helping at the moment. And it's interesting. Interesting.
Now, so 2010, let's rewind back for a second. So that was 2 years after the 2008, everything happened in the world, didn't it? In relation to finance and how the bubble was there. So what did marketing look like then? And, let's fast forward 15 years,
What I think when I started in advertising, it was before the internet existed, which makes me feel incredibly old. And there was the internet and digital marketing was called new media. and you'd have people planning and buying press, radio and TV campaigns, and you'd have one or two geeks in the corner doing new media. You had the dot-com bubble in about 2001. And around this time, it was evident. So there was a thing called media fragmentation, where you were having more radio stations, you were having more TV stations, newspaper readerships were going down. And so I was faced with having a career ultimately managing decline in the industry, which is going away from us, or pivoting to working in like online marketing in a area that was emerging. It was uncertain. There was going to be opportunity. There was advertising, like papers that were saying that there's going to be newspapers as we know them won't exist by 2035. And if you think about newspaper readership at the moment, that's probably fairly accurate. And so it was clear the internet was going to disrupt the economy, and how that pan has been borne out is quite significant. So I think in 2010, my initial thing was, get the 5 days work, and then after 3-4 months, I had that, and so life was good. I was, had a good sort of work-life balance. But I think as things move on, I then got probably a little bit more confident, thinking I'm going to recruit some staff and try and build something together where there's sort of a sort of unifying sort of culture that sort of sits beneath us.
Yeah, because there would have been a moment, like there is for all of us as businesses, young businesses or growing businesses, where there is that moment of, right, I think I do need to employ people, and right, I think I do need an actual office. I need to exist. And so then we as owners, I guess, we asked ourselves the question of, okay, turn right, turn left, what do I do here? And when was that in your journey?
So it's probably fairly early on, and I think I based stuff on results, and so we picked up some clients. We were delivering results. We became sort of critical partners for them. They were really happy with what we were doing and the effect we were having on their business. And I had too much work, and so my hand was sort of forced. And so there's an old colleague of mine, and she came on board to help me in the early stages, like very trusted, safe pair of hands. And then started working from a friend's office, and then sort of built things out from there. So yeah.
Yeah. What we found, and I love this of climbing trees, what we found is that when you really find a niche, and I think your niche is something businesses really need more than ever. I mean, I love what you do, and I think it's because it really resonates. It resonated 15 years ago, but I think now, certainly post-COVID, my feeling is that businesses have never needed this more. And it's a real focus in your proposition and how you're doing that. So have you seen that kind of shift over the certainly post-COVID, with clients?
Yeah. So I think for us there was, so pre-COVID, we probably had in the business random acts of purpose where we tried to treat our staff okay. We tried to look into our local community and do some bits and pieces, or it was random. And I think in the earlier stages of the pandemic, I had been thinking about becoming the B Corp. We all remember those 2 weeks where everyone was locked down, and we had something like 40% of our clients just stop overnight.
Yeah.
And so the business just went down like that. We there was 6 or 7 of us at the time, and we were able to just hit that 60% level and trade through. And so at that time, I took that as an opportunity to look at the B Corp, the impact assessment, where in that framework it was there's 5 pillars it looks at. So how you govern the business, how you treat clients, how you treat staff, how you treat local community, and then the environment. And so I went through that over maybe 12 months or so.
Right.
Wasn't all the time.
Yeah.
I'd sort of dip in and out of it, but it was a sort of forensic analysis of the business that I'd set up, looking at those sort of 5 pillars, and I uncovered a massive amount of opportunity where we could actually improve things and do stuff better.
Yeah.
So look after our people better. I think as an agency, you're always looking after clients okay.
Yes.
You don't get that far if you don't. But there was stuff around the environment and society that we really sort of doubled down on, and I think it just appealed. And I think I'd always probably meant to do that in business, but had just gone through that sort of phase of existential angst of, is this a business and can I grow it? Can I get 5 days work for myself? Can I build a team to 5 people? And so I spent a lot of time focusing on that. and the business that came out of that process was just more built out, foundationally much better. And I think then it's resonated with staff and then new clients as well.
Yeah, we're so interesting. So you started that conversation with about delivering good client service, and you can only do that if you've got people inside who, number one, know what that is, what that looks like, and are able to embrace and deliver that in the same way. So I think it's almost ironic and yet purposeful. So you've either done this, well, you've obviously done this intentionally, is that when you sort of build that whole ethos within inside your own business, it's amazing how other businesses gravitate towards that, because they're seeing what that's doing is it's manifesting in its own message, isn't it? It's saying this is how we think business should be run because we're running our own business like this now. And I'm imagining what's happened as a result of that is your clients have said, the people that didn't even know you before they became clients were really connecting with that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there is a growing movement of trying to use business as a force for good. So it's not just for the shareholders and the owners, but it's for the team, the communities and the environment, making sure that you're looking after those stakeholders in an exceptional way. And increasingly through time, we're sort of connecting with those kind of people. We picked up the Greenpeace account in the UK, and so we've been a strategic partner of theirs for maybe 4 or 5 years now.
That's great.
And I think it is based on not only talking the talk, but walking the walk and having a little bit of humility. I almost think where we've got to with it is I don't think what we're doing is anything special. I just think it's what everyone should be doing. And so I don't think we really deserve that many accolades for what we're doing in that regard.
Yeah, I love that. You're very modest, Alex. I think, and I think that's what gravitates people towards you, I imagine. But I think what you're doing is special, and I think that's the point. And really, what you're doing is, in a very non-shouty way, is making real differences. You know, you're disrupting in a very in a very natural way,
in a very polite way, I think there's a lot in the ad industry and the marketing industry that needs to be disruptive. You think about advertising; it's almost like the beating heart of capitalism.
Yeah.
And if that was then fitted with purpose and real meaning and intent, I think the UK economy can be reshaped from those kind of things.
I couldn't agree with you more. And it's really interesting. So, talk to me a little bit about some of the work you do, because obviously the fact that you're there to help market other businesses so that their own messages are being conveyed and portrayed and really connect with their audiences, what difference does Climbing Trees make, and what do your clients see in that, you know?
And so, yeah, and I think so as part of this process, we mapped out with a team a client screening policy.
Right.
And so we surveyed the team at the time and said, would you work with people that work in the fossil fuels industry, the gambling industry, payday loans, selling sugary sweets to children? Mapped out all the sort of contentious industries there were. And we've mapped out a client screening policy. I think we're now exceptionally clear on who we won't work with. And so I think we can put our work into supporting clients that have positive impact in the world or negative impact. And we very clearly want to work and partner with organisations that are either operating that messy bit in the middle, where they're maybe not that purpose driven, where they're just great businesses making great products for customers and thinking about the kind of matters we've considered, or purpose-driven organisations that are leaning into some of the problems that are in the world. And so we have a portfolio of amazing clients that are out there actually trying to change the economy and shape it in a way where some of the problems there are then monetised and made into a sort of commercial enterprise.
Yeah. So what about the people who think they like the idea of that but don't know how to do that? You must have clients who really buy into the concept and believe that their business is a force for good, but they're not really, it's not shaped that way.
Absolutely. And so I think in the UK or globally, I think there's something like 400 different ESG certificates you can get.
Right.
Some are super simple. You fill in a bit of paperwork in an afternoon and you're done. I always think that the B Corp framework is the gold standard in terms of it is the most intensive and comprehensive, and they've just revised the standards as well. So they're going to be even more exacting going forward, which I think is a really positive thing. And so when we have clients that are in that situation, we've had maybe 2 or 3 of our existing client portfolio that have then gone through the B Impact assessment. It's an online tool, anyone can log into it, and you can then look at your business through that way and sort of get an honest reflection back of this is where you are. And then you're faced as a business with a choice as to whether you decide to lean into some of that output or not. I was down in Cornwall last week with a client talking to their senior leadership team, and they are genuinely considering whether to do it or not. And I think they're like talking about it. There's a lot of the work has already been done.
Right.
But I know for myself, there was a lot of opportunity for us to do better.
Yeah.
And so the average and B Corp framework, it's out of 200. The average UK business, I believe, scores something like 51 points.
Right.
To become a B Corp, you need 80 points. We certified in 22 with 87.9 points. So just over the threshold. We've just recertified at 111 points. And I think alarmingly, they've just changed the framework, so the point system's dying. But I think there's what that framework shows is a direction of travel in the business. So it's about continuous improvement. It's not about we're a B Corp and we're doing everything great. It's about we're a B Corp and we're on the journey, and we're going to continually strive to improve this year, next year, and the year after, to try and actually have conversations with people where you are being a positive influence and trying to almost repurpose capitalism in a much better way.
Yeah. So the journey, your clients now then, so they range, give us, you don't have to name them necessarily, but what sort of industries do they fall into?
So we partner with Olympus Cameras on a pan-European basis, and so we take care of a lot of their digital marketing. We work with Greenpeace in the UK, and then we work with, there's an amazing company called Mixergy who are trying to change boilers, and so rather than just heating a whole tank of hot water in the morning, they have an adaptive boiler that understands the rhythm of your house. And so that they will then, if you use a quarter of a tank of water in the morning for a shower, it will heat that and nothing else. So it's more energy efficient and more carbon efficient, and so actually resolving a problem of wastage in the UK economy. And so it's that kind of innovation that is particularly interesting to us, because that's where that's the biggest impact we have. We're just a team of 20 people or so up in North Essex, but our clients are going to have a much, much bigger impact on the world. And so supporting the right type of clients is really important to us.
Yeah. So it's so interesting. So you said it there, Olympus Cameras to, Greenpeace. I mean, they're just never would those two meet each other at any point.
Yeah.
And yet their own purpose is bared out with the marketing services that you deliver for them.
Absolutely. And I think with Olympus, for example, they're really thinking about their business, their marketplace, their products, circularity. And so there's a massive body of work that is within that organisation going on, and will really help that business be elevated over the sort of coming years.
Yeah. Talk to us about sort of the journey of people finding you.
Yeah.
And then when you're having those first conversations, presumably discovery calls and the like, what's those conversations look like, and why have people found you? I imagine a lot of the business you do is referral and recommendation.
Yeah. And so we're really fortunate to get a large percentage of business through referral. And so usually there's a good culture and value fit then already. We do best when people place importance on the strategic value of our work. And so, we look after, paid ads, paid search, paid social, organic search. And so with those areas, there are vendors that are based on price,
right,
that are based on having high volume, low quality, and that isn't where we are.
No.
And so we want to work with clients on a more strategic level, where typically the first engagement looks at a strategic piece of work, where we look into a client's marketplace, benchmark them against the competition, analyse trends, look at where competitors are ranking, look at where they're spending money, do a big piece of desk research ourselves, and then synthesize that into a go-to-market sort of activation plan, where we can then sort of deploy that with quarterly business reviews and annual business reviews. And so that is a service level offering which typically suits clients with a larger budget. And so usually in terms of the qualification calls that you mentioned, they are we a good fit for you?
Yeah.
Are we able to do what you want? And are actually you a good fit for us as well?
Yeah, interesting.
And so we have gone through probably over the last 2 years a process of we probably qualify more clients out than ever before, and those standards have been raised. And it's unsettling because I've been used to being really busy on new business in the earlier phase of the business, and now we're not, and we're more strategic in what we're doing on that side.
Yeah, but I just think that brings a bigger purpose to your complete, what you're doing.
Absolutely.
Frankly, yeah. Now it's really interesting. I picked up on something there as well, which I can again our own business can really relate to. Is that when you consider we're in the world of marketing services, let's just use that as a statement. But I always say market. It's not that. It's really about business and brand growth. So many people will come to our business, and I imagine to your business, because they might be looking for some paid search, some paid social, and I don't suppose it's very long in that first call where you're like, right, hold on a minute here, let's really drive back at purpose before we're doing any talking about delivery. And we find that all the time, certainly in our own business, and I imagine there's quite a lot of businesses are very happy just to do the paid search, do the paid social, just take the money, do the media activation without really getting at the purpose.
And I think we try and take a step back and always think that what we do is a downstream thing of real business goals. And so if we engage with an organisation, it's okay, what are your growth targets over the last year?
Yeah.
Can we benchmark what you've been doing over the last year? Can we build a model whereby we know that we can push you onto a growth curve where we can achieve your commercial ambitions and what that looks like?
Yeah.
So rather than just doing some ads or doing some SEO, it's about making sure that the work we're doing at our level is having impact on like real business metrics.
Yeah. I just want to have a little conversation because I think we can both share as agents, as agency partners, if you like, this whole thing about agency churn, which I sort of wince at and laugh at in the same breath. So, and we've been victim of both sides of that. We pick up a lot of clients because they've been churned out of another agency, or we've lost the odd client because they're not getting what they perceive to be the right thing. And I always find it really interesting that certainly if you run that full circle, we've picked up clients that were somewhere else once, and that may not have stayed with us. And by the way, they don't sometimes stay with us, not just because they choose not to. We've, on the odd occasion, also thought this is just not working. And so they go on again into the next agency. And what we found over the years, I feel, is that if they can be patient and you can really play the strategic, line with the whole thing, which is it's a purpose-driven thing, not a results-driven thing. Obviously, results are really, really important. But I think if the purpose is right, then the results really bear out in the end. And it's been a really interesting, speaking to other agency partners, that conversation over the years it's got really interesting because we just don't like being part of the agency churn mechanism at all.
Yeah, and I think I think it ladders back to agency sales. It thinks about things like the qualification process, how you onboard clients, and then how you communicate with clients. And I think across those areas, if you are overly driven based on commercial sales, you'll onboard anyone, whether they're a cultural fit or not. If you do a more consultative sell whereby there is that in the qualification process, a real synergy between the two organisations, there's a real ability to hit their commercial objectives and you know that going into it, then if you navigate the onboarding process in a successful way, it's down to then the internal comms. Because what we try and do with clients is we know that for people in marketing, it's one of the shortest tenures in the C-suite under massive pressure, really stressful situation. And so one of our core values is being caring, and we understand those are the pressures our clients are under, and we're fortunate that our clients treat the business and our team in a really exceptional way. And so we can have really sort of adult conversations about things when things are going well, about what we're going to do to accelerate that growth, or if they're not on target, what we're going to do and how we can then change activity, pivot activity to actually then try and uncover our new opportunities for growth. And so as long as the communication's there and is on point, I think you can do a lot of work as an agency to sort of control that process. I think certainly in the earlier days of the agency, when I was probably more in charge of sales, I was probably less exacting in qualification. I had a certain fear of got to make payroll and those kind of things. And so it forced me to onboard clients that maybe weren't a good fit. And then what you have is then organisational problems, you get unhappy clients, and then you have clients moving on. And so I think there are things that you're in full control of that you can sort of do to finesse that.
Yeah, I think you can, honestly, I think you can spot it a mile off usually these days. Now, one of the things that I also wanted to talk to you about is our own business is really big on sort of, brand in, brand out. So what goes on inside an organisation really manifests on what goes on outside. And what you just said there really, what I like about this, I think it's a really nice circle that you're filling, which is we really get to know our clients and we really get to know them as, on a human level. So yes, there's a commercial play that they're looking for in what you're going to be delivering, but I imagine it's because you're talking much deeper to people about how their actual organisation even operates. So I always find this interesting, they come to you for a marketing service ultimately, and then you're starting to talk to them about some of the operational parts within their business that help them live and breathe as a business, in order that they get get all of that aligned. So when the marketing happens, that becomes much more purposeful. Yeah. And I think that's really, if people can buy into that, which obviously they must be for climbing trees, I think that's where the big value is.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's, we very much stay in our lane. And so we know what we're exceptional at, and giving oxygen to brands and websites is, the primary thing, or whether it's campaigns, that's what we do. But to achieve those objectives, we need to have an understanding of everything else within the business. And so we don't typically preach or touch stuff that isn't our core skills, but we will have conversations about it, and that's where we have sort of an ecosystem of partners. So I was talking to a client yesterday, we don't do email marketing, they need a partner, we've got some that we can introduce them to. And so we just have we try and have a deep specialism in what we're excellent at, and rather than just trying to be a jack of all trades.
But it's being excellent at what you do, but you have to recognise all the other elements that affect that. I think this is the thing. We've worked with business, like we used to work with a web company, and they were really, really good at web. And we picked up in the end a lot of business from them, and actually in the end I don't even know if they're around anymore. We ended up doing their work for them, because what it became very clear to us is they were just a web company, but there was loads of things that affected what that web looked, not just the way it looked, how it lived and breathed, what the the user experience was like, who's engaging, how do they engage, all of the things that sat around that. And it was quite interesting to note that they weren't going out. It's weird. I get the stay in your lane, I really do. But you've got to know who else is in the race. If you take the lane analogy.
Absolutely. And I think it's about playing well with others. And so we collaborate on client accounts with other PR agencies, web development agencies, creative agencies, whoever they are, and just try and leverage the synergies there for the client's greater advantage, rather than last thing a client wants to do is to have 3 or 4 agencies bickering and fighting and that kind of stuff. And so it's just to try and form that sort of synergy and make it work for the client.
Yeah. So Alex, now, you mentioned earlier about your own business values. And of course, I imagine a lot of what you do is really helping your clients' business values resonate outwardly. So talk to us about the value piece for your business, and also what that looks like when you're communicating and working with your clients.
Yeah, sure. So I think when I set up the business, I had no cognition of the importance of values, really, and how they would be shaped. And so I think there's been a process of evolution with them and getting them clearer and clearer. So we've got four key values, which are being caring, being ethical, client focused, and being curious. And so they have come through some work internally where we've tried to draw that together from the team. But I think ultimately, as a business founder, I lead on those, and they're not just like words where we've got a picture of a waterfall in the boardroom with a word underneath it. These are things that we try and really embody in the business. So we consider them in our board meetings, we consider them when we recruit people, and I think values are important, and they're the most important thing when no one else is looking. How are you living when no one else is there? And so very often they're sort of, when I experience a problem, it could be on a client account or it could be with a team member, it usually, if you bring it back to, there's a variance in terms of the values. And so very often they're almost like a sort of North Star in terms of how we navigate those sort of conversations to try and make sure that we're dealing with those situations in a really principled way.
Yeah.
And it's not like we're caring 100% of the time, but I believe that we always revert back to that as it's almost like a compass going back to north or something.
Yeah.
That's the direction we're going in.
Yeah. So thereby, when you do that for yourself, once again, when you're having conversations with your clients, that plays right through, doesn't it? So not only are you demonstrating that because of the way you're dealing with clients and the care that you give them, but onwardly, you're helping them realise their own values.
Absolutely. And I think for us, it's people, that values are the same whether whether I live them or you live them.
Yeah.
And so there is that connection at that sort of level. We had it with, we had a changeover with an account manager. One of our account managers wanted to go travelling in South America. I don't blame him. And so in the changeover, we weren't able to recruit someone soon enough. And so there was a bit of a wobble on the account. There were a few mistakes we've made. There were things that had gone wrong. And we then, in that situation, we owned them with honesty. But I think the thing that we did is there were a senior contact and a less senior contact at the client level. We engaged with both of them, where we spoke to them about it, had a very open conversation, expressed this is what's gone on, this is where we are, this is what we're doing about it, reassured them of our intent. So you actually then, it goes from being what can ultimately be seen as a negative situation to one where the client actually has, hopefully as a result of that, more trust in our intent and authenticity and what we're actually doing. So we're not just leaving them in a really tricky situation. We're actually like resolving that problem, owning it, and letting them know that we know what's going to happen.
Yeah. When a client comes to you and says, okay, so let's just assume they're new. Okay. So, Alex, it's really good to meet you. You've been referred to us. I think we're going to get on. And let me tell you a bit about our business. This is what we stand for, and this is what we're looking to achieve. There's obviously always a commercial play there, and a growth play potentially. Maybe there's even an exit play, depending on where they are on their journey. And I know you're going to help us be able to do that. So they'll go through. I'm going to have you're going to have a discovery call with me. Yep. I'm going to tell you all the things you need to know about us. And now I know how you work. We're going to work out if we can work together. What's the bit that you do at Climbing Trees where you say, okay, on the basis of all the things you've asked, we've gained about you, and knowing the direction of travel that you would like to take, this is what it looks like if you work with Climbing Trees. Where does that strategic piece turn into, okay, this is how we're going to do this? And are there times where you're like, I can see that, and it might be their proposition or their messaging or what they've done previously, where you might look at it and say, okay, well, what you're currently doing or how you're saying it might not be where you're needing to be.
Yep.
How do you move that? What's the conversation look like?
So in terms of like at that sort of level, when it comes to things that are overtly creative and messaging wise, because we don't, we're not a creative agency, we don't do branding, we don't do websites, we don't do like campaign initiatives. So we always end up having conversations on our clients' behalf with either internal team members or external partners. And so usually there will be a conversation there, and we can sort of inform that strategy where in that sort of strategic piece of work, we can see what's happening in the market. We can see what competitors are doing. We can look at search volumes from Google, from Microsoft, from social search, from what people are searching on, AI engines. And we can sort of synthesize that into a body of work where that can help inform those conversations.
Yeah.
But typically we support those conversations, we don't lead them.
Yeah, but it's so, I just find that it's so interesting. I would see I mean, we are by definition a creative agency. We build a lot of content, and I would see the entire value in you informing me of what else the market is doing and saying. And it's very likely that, in fact, it's not even likely, it would 100% be that I would use that intelligence that you're providing me to help me create a better creative for you.
Absolutely.
You know, and I think so. Again, I think I just find this conversation really interesting.
And I think if you've got the conversion funnel from like high conversion to awareness, then we try and format across the channels that we touch a certain position. So it could be there's some organic search, which is directional, very close to funnel. There could be some paid search as well. Whereas there could be audiences we uncover on Meta or TikTok or Facebook, wherever it is. We do a whole load of programmatic stuff as well. And so we can think about what the audiences are across that funnel. And then typically we work with creative partners where they will then produce the content for, it could be TikTok or it could be social selling or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So just to try and make sure that we have a sort of full funnel approach where we're hoovering up all of the high intent activity, but then driving people into sort of the awareness funnel as well.
Yeah. Because I just think, you know, when you're so specialist in your lane, I think it affects other, you know, do you have clients, for example, who will, if you give them intelligence based on what they're looking to achieve, and you provide that information back to them, which is essentially saying, look, I think you need to either be placing your ads or awareness in other areas, or we think that it appears that other competitions seem to be using this language, for example, or doing it in a slightly different way. Do you find people saying, no, don't worry, we leave that bit to us. That's not your job. We just need to.
Yeah, sometimes there can be that sort of you're almost encroaching on someone else's territory sort of feeling. But we always try to tread into those situations quite sensitively. I think the interesting thing for us is at the different areas of the funnel, you get people at different stages of the buying sort of cycle. And so they need different sort of commercial messages. And what we're doing a lot of research around AI and how people search on AI. And we're seeing that that's growing exponentially. So it's sort of doubling in terms of traffic every 3 months. And so at the moment, the numbers are small, but that gets somewhere very big very quickly. And how people are using AI engines like ChatGPT or Perplexity or Claude to actually inform a purchasing decision, and they're doing it in a unique way and in a way that's not entirely mapped out and understood. And so I think we're in for an exciting ride, but that the whole AI conversation moves into AI agents. And if you're planning a holiday to Thailand for 2 weeks in February half term next year, you're going to be able to get an AI agent to go out and say, this is what I want. I'm going with my wife and my children. I want to do this and go scuba diving. It will go back and it will come back with options for you that you'll be able to then select from. And that takes a lot of the purchasing power and sort of desk decision making that people do, where you're researching, where's that hotel? Is it close to there? I want to go snorkeling here. It will just come back with those recommendations. And I think at the moment we all know about AI hallucinations, but there is a integrity and a trust that you need to gain in these engines, and we're in that process of actually learning how they work and learning how to leverage the information. So I was on holiday in April and came up with a whole load of suggestions, and then what I did is I then took those and then double checked them to actually make sure that I was going to arrive somewhere that actually existed.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
But very soon those sort of vagaries and those sort of weirdnesses will resolve themselves, and people will just have trust in these AI agents that just do things for them.
Yeah. So again, I just find this. I think it's a paradox. I'm not sure. I mean, we're big users of AI for all the right things, but there's still a lot of people. We're really motivated to use AI the right way, I guess is probably the way to put it. But what I find fascinating, and again, if I think about what you stand for as a business and thereby what your clients might stand for, the AI argument and discussion must be a really interesting one at the moment. Is it a force for good? I mean, it's doing good.
It's a really contentious subject, and we're faced with a choice of not getting involved and then being disintermediated through time, or leaning into it. So we're choosing the latter because there is a potential existential threat, or it will change the shape of what the business looks like in terms of how the makeup of the team and that kind of thing. But when you look at AI, from the raw mineral usage to the water usage, to the environmental impacts, to the energy usage, it's a phenomenal amount of burden out there on the environment. There is a theory that AI will eventually be able to lean into some of the climate problems we're facing and solve them, and that's as yet unproven. And I think AI companies are very keen to talk about that kind of thing. I hope it does happen. Whether it does or not remains to be seen. I'm somewhat sceptical, but there are some use cases where you can use AI in a more efficient way. There's the big thing that people have been talking about recently about if you add please to a request from ChatGPT, and that's done globally, the amount of compute and energy that is consumed to just deal with all those pleases. If you have brevity in how you're communicating in terms of your prompts, that's going to be a good thing. If you also ask AI engines to come back with a short response rather than a long response, you can then affect it that way.
See, I find this fascinating.
Absolutely. And there's an amazing company in Holland called Green GPT or Green PT, I can't remember what it is, that we're using a lot, where they're based purely on renewable energy.
Right.
And so the actual carbon impact of that as an AI engine is significantly reduced.
Well, I've learned something today. There you go. Because that's really interesting, because I'm so old school and have a lot of etiquette and manners in anything I do when I'm talking to somebody. I say please all the time when I'm asking things. So I'm actually doing bad.
Well, and I was doing it, wanting to make sure that our new robot overlords didn't come and hunt me down for being unpolite.
Yeah, I find that absolutely fascinating. Okay, so the other thing, I just want to talk to you, business owner to business owner, actually, for a second here, because it's really interesting. At the end of the day, businesses fundamentally are people dealing with other people. And life as an agency owner is interesting if it's anything else. Always love the conversation about client side, agency side. I think that in itself is its own podcast. But, I certainly believe, or at least I do. I believe that our business and absolutely, Alex, your business is really there trying to make a genuine difference, even to the point sometimes, commercially, there might be some things that aren't as they should be. And maybe one day I'll work that one out. But I find that I feel like it can be quite endearing for a lot of people. I think they really gravitate and towards, okay, well, these people look as if they really are trying to help us. There's a... What's your feeling in general, and the life of an agency owner?
I think that sometimes with agency owners, you're positioned between staff and clients. And so on good days, you've got happy clients, you've got happy staff. And then on more challenging days, there'll be problems. And you're dealing with people, and, the vagaries of life can throw up all the good stuff in life. We've got team members that are getting married, they're having children, all part of life's rich tapestry. But then you have team members and clients that are going through tougher things. And so I think then it's about, for us, the values in terms of how we look after our people. And I think that in the earlier phase of business, I don't know that I always got that wrong. I don't think I'm doing a lot of stuff perfectly now, but I very view my job as just making sure that we are genuinely looking after our team and having their back and trying to support them. And then similarly doing that with clients as well.
Yeah.
And so I think it's just, real, like almost a degree of selflessness where you're actually, I view my role as trying to, and it sounds so pompous and magnanimous, but it's almost like trying to make sure you're serving your staff and your clients.
Yeah.
And you are in that position of service where you look after them, and there's no real altruism in it, because if I don't look after them, I'm going to have unhappy clients and unhappy staff. And I don't know much about being in business, but that's not a good business model.
Yeah.
And so I just try and lean into those areas as much as I can to try and make sure we are looking after them as excellently as possible.
Yeah. And again, I mean, by the way, I echo that completely, which is I think why we relate to each other so much. But again, I believe businesses really want that. Mm-hmm. I think that's the beautiful circle being complete here, is that in the end, I'm confident that we're finding this, to be honest with you, that clients seem to gravitate towards people who care. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's funny, isn't it? It's just, I think we went through a whole, and COVID certainly didn't help this. And, even, we had a discussion prior to this podcast about working from home and that hybrid working and just how things are starting to change. For example, we've been working recently with a bunch of clients on exhibitions, and it's wonderful, isn't it? The exhibitions are alive and well again, and experiential, and the notion that people are actually meeting people.
Absolutely. I think there's a real desire I think the working world has changed phenomenally from when my old dad was working to when I started working, where you would be at work in the office at 7:30 in the morning, you'd work till 6:30 at night, you go to the pub every day, and work would be your life. Whereas now the balance has sort of shifted where, if you're, for some of our parents in our team, we have a phenomenal sort of balance where it's really family positive and really family friendly. What I do know is that I think our working practices need to evolve a little bit, based on the fact that I think some of our more junior talent that we're introducing into the industry need a little bit more FaceTime, desk coaching support, what like real behaviour from more senior people being modelled for them, so they can actually try and emulate those kind of characteristics. And so we're having a conversation as an organisation about what that looks like for us, and trying to evolve that in a way that's acceptable to everyone, I guess.
Yeah. And that, again, it's, you mentioned the younger workforce. I mean, honestly, I learn way more than I think I'm teaching. And I find it really interesting and to see how things have changed. I mean, it's dramatic, actually. But what I really love is the fact that, again, and I think this is really bears out again when you've got a location, an office basically that you're working from, that you've got the ability to. It's teaching whilst not teaching, isn't it? It's living the business and breathing the business. Client engagement. We're big fans of, when we're doing client meetings, we'll take younger work members with us, and perhaps in days gone by that they would have been still in the office. So obviously, Alex, as a core part of your business is really the conversation around ethics and I guess ethical everything, ethical trading. So talk to us about that.
So I think ethics is the thing where you've got a series of checks and balances, and those checks and balances are super personal. And so what I view as right for myself and my business will be different from the next man's. And so that's why you can have two people behaving in what they consider an ethical way, and they're just absolutely sort of poles apart.
Yeah.
And so I think for us, it's just trying to put our best foot forward with genuine authenticity, with a degree of humility, so that we're not making out that we're perfect, because we don't want to sort of veer into the territory of doing stuff around like greenwashing and some of the nonsense that is out there in the world.
Greenwashing, right. So I hear about this a lot. Talk to me about greenwashing. What?
So I think greenwashing is where you're making claims about a product or service that cannot be substantiated. And so typically it's, when we work with clients, with this amazing company we're dealing with in Sheffield that has a product they're taking to marketplace, and it's going to improve the heating efficiency of the average house by, I think, about 18%.
Right.
And so to support that 18% claim, they've worked with a set of academics where they've actually had room being heated without product, room being heated with product, and then they have the
Gotcha.
forensic measurement of that, so the claim can be substantiated
Right.
when put into sort of marketing materials. And so I think there are various government bodies like the Advertising Standards Authority, which stamp down and take a good look at what organisations are doing from that regard. And I think for us, it's it's not making daft claims about being green or that kind of stuff. And I think the language around sustainability is confusing for the average consumer.
I would agree with that, yeah.
And I don't know what's right. I don't know whether we go down the route of having like food labels where you've got like fat in red or yellow or orange or green or whatever with environmental claims. But I believe there is out in the market, there's confusion about the whole thing. And I think it can be twisted by bad actors intentionally as well.
Yeah.
And so you see a lot of large fossil fuel clients who will say, "Are we going to set up algae batteries? It's going to be the future." They'll invest £50 million into algae batteries. They'll invest 200 million in the marketing of the batteries and then put a pin in it. But then everyone in the marketplace thinks, "Oh, they're doing something good around algae batteries," even though the whole conversation's ended. And so I don't think those will fall foul of any legislative laws,
Yeah.
but there is a playbook that's been copied from like the tobacco industry,
Right.
in how to try and influence public opinion and just sow doubt. And so, yeah, I feel like the advertising industry can be a tremendous force for good, but there's a lot of house cleaning that could be taken on.
Yeah, well put. I love the way you frame that, and it's so true. And it's really interesting, right? Because, when I think of ethical, so in the previous life, I used to do a lot of buying from the Far East. Mm-hmm. So there were various ethical bodies, SEDEX and the like, that were all part of that whole mechanism. And what you were finding most difficult, and it's a bit, let's be frank about it, it's a bit like ISO, isn't it? For some people, it's just a badge. It's the badge that really will commercially allow me to do a lot more. But no one's living by it, are they? And we saw that all the time, and if I'm honest, the business that I once worked with did exactly that. It was a commercial play, not a purposeful play. Fast forward all these years to now, corporate social responsibilities, like this big buzzword, everyone's talking about it. But I don't know how many people are sort of acting through it or even know what it really means.
Yeah, I think there are. So in the UK, and I think globally there's about 10,000 B Corps. In the UK, there's 2,500, so more than in any other country. And within that community, you have some that are forming a thing called the Better Business Act, where they're actually trying to get a reading at Parliament of an act which will basically allow business to make decisions based on people and planet and not just on shareholder primacy.
Right.
And so this can be a tremendous force for good. So there are B Corps out there doing stuff where they're actually trying to change the world. I know agency owners that have become B Corp so they can get a logo to bang it on their creds. When you talk to them, someone in the office did it for them and they're dead in the eyes about it. It means nothing. And so I don't really mind people doing that, because what I think is, going through the process, that business will be better as a result of it, and they will have had to have substantiated and made some changes. And so it's a good thing, but I think they are sort of missing out on some of the opportunity from it. There are so many accreditations. And as I said, some are really easy to pass, some are meaningless, some are just a bit of paperwork. And so for us, we tried to choose the one that was logistically the most challenging to get through, and to lean into that process with genuine intent. And that's just what felt right for me, because I don't think I'd have bothered doing it if it was just box ticking.
Yeah. Interesting. And I imagine you're seeing a lot of that with your clients as well. So you must know in the first 10 minutes or 20 seconds probably, when you're talking to people, that their intent is either led by a commercial play or an act, or they've got some integrity.
Absolutely. I think you can bring it to life in terms of the body of work that you did across different sectors of or areas of your business, and you can work out whether someone's serious about it or not.
Yeah. So come on then, let's talk about the future, Alex. So climbing trees. I mean, it's a tall tree, right? Already, that's what I'm realizing. But like all trees, I suppose there's a top.
Yeah.
What does this look like for you? What does good look like? And
Yeah, so I think we've got some ambitious growth targets. We're working hard as a team to get towards those. What we want to try and do is start growing in the way where we can break that growth from our link to our environmental footprint. We're also really trying to form a plan where we can actually really focus on giving back to our local community in Essex, which is important to me. I've lived in Essex most of my life. I'm from Essex, and so I think there's a tremendous vibrancy in the county, and so if we can do some stuff over the coming years to really give back and look after some people. So we're in conversations with a number of different groups about what shape that takes. I think we want to work with more impactful clients.
yeah,
And then for me, the whole thing is about the team we're putting in place. And so we're employing people that are better at the job than I ever was, which is a really disconcerting thing. So technically, they're much more sophisticated, and they just do some of the most amazing work that we regularly win significant awards for our clients. And I think what I'm thinking about is I'm arriving at a point in life where I'm thinking I've just turned 50, next big birthday is going to be 60, and I'm thinking, well, how can I reward some of the team and sort of let them sort of take the business on in the next phase of activity while I sort of move into a sort of like chairman type role.
yeah,
And so I'm thinking about those kind of things. We're having those sort of conversations internally. And I think it's important for me. I don't want to have a business where I'm super profitable, I make loads of money, but I do it at the detriment of my staff, our clients,
Yeah.
or local community or environment. And so if I think there's a legacy, if we could have that sort of thing, maybe explore an employee ownership trust or something like that, I think it'd be great.
yeah. I honestly, I think if I think about again what you do in the space you do it, I can't see anything more than growth. Because my feeling is that most of the world commercially will move that way. I know there is the dark side, by the way,
Yeah.
and it's there always, isn't it?
And I think with our friends in America at the moment, there's a big pushback when it comes to stuff around ESG, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I think that's going to play out over the next sort of 4 years or so. I think there will be a number of people that have stepped forward into this kind of area that will fold and hand their cards in to pivot to doing something else. But I think we take a sort of longer term view where you know that what comes after in like 4 years' time, there will be a big resurgence in this kind of thing. And so sometimes when a force goes in one direction, it can be a unifying thing. And so for us, it's very galvanizing. And we're just doubled down on making sure that we sort of stay true to ourselves. And what we hope is that clients and staff that have a shared worldview will come and join us.
Yeah, but I find it interesting, that whole thing there, because even though to your point, even though there's pushback in certain areas that could suggest that, oh well, you know, that piece of business, that commercial piece of play might get smaller because people don't consider that anymore. I just feel like that's in the conversation anyway, like always. So the fact that a company like Climbing Trees are in that conversation, knowing that those things are happening all the time, you know, I can see how things are moving, keeps you grounded, doesn't it, there?
Yeah, for sure. And I think there's a massive opportunity for the sustainability community, especially in terms of marketing, to do better so that it's not the preserve of a certain like white middle class elite or something, and to make it more commonplace. And so the challenge for businesses and marketers is to make the sustainable product to be the more cost effective product, whereas at the moment we have this thing with the green tax where if it's a more sustainable product, it's usually more expensive. And so I feel like when that puzzle is sorted, the overall market will demand more from businesses. And so I certainly think there'll be a certain degree of the market that will hold true in.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it makes sense if you don't already do this, by the way, and you don't need to do this here. You do it wherever you want. You do it where. But are you having lots of conversations with your clients about what does the future look like?
I think we always try and be like future facing. So we're always constantly marking our own homework in terms of looking at what happened in the last quarter, what's gone well, what the opportunity is, how we can push things forward. And then we do a cycle of sort of annual business reviews where we are looking on the horizon and sort of scanning for opportunities and what's going on. So, yeah.
Yeah, because I, when I think of thought leadership, again, I think a business like Climbing Trees could be leading that, like, big time, in general, because I think that you're there to facilitate a conversation which ultimately plays well for your business, but also plays for the right reasons, not, again...
Absolutely, and there's many like amazing agencies doing like really good stuff in this space that are further down the road than us and delivering that kind of thing, and that's sort of aspirations for the future. So
yeah, right. Well, it's been a fascinating conversation. I've got one more question for you, and at the end of the day, we've all got one of these. What's your career highlight, or maybe you haven't had it yet? I think this is really interesting. So, what would that be?
So I think for us, we as a business, we picked up the Greenpeace account maybe 4 or 5 years ago. I can't remember, and we've then consolidated a whole body of work from them, and having been a supporter of Greenpeace for a large amount of my life, for them to then choose to work with a business, and then to grow the account, and that's not on my shoulders. That's based on, we've got a couple of the team that work on the account, do amazing work. And to then win awards for that work as well, where I think there was a year where he picked up 6 or 7 awards for our work with Greenpeace. I think that's the thing. So the thing that we're building, we know that we're giving oxygen to stuff that has real impact out there in the world. So that's amazing.
I mean, I don't know how you can top that answer, Alex. That's the perfect cycle completed there, isn't it? And onwardly, and what effect that has onwardly.
Absolutely, and I think it's just that's the sort of ideal project where the net result of it is we feel the world is a better place as a result of their activities. So
yeah. Oh, good on you. That's absolutely fascinating. Look, we're looking forward to doing some more work with you. But this has been it's been great to speak with you. Tune in for more, I guess.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, an absolute pleasure.